Hello, loves, and welcome back to the podcast. And we have a new name, we have a new vibe, and I'm so excited. I have been reflecting a lot. I had one of my famous death and rebirths very recently, and really started to think about what do I, Fallon Jordan, want to really bring to the world? And if I could describe it in the least amount of words possible, what would that be? It just came through loud and clear that be ultra, like be unapologetic and be authentic. And, we have this, in society, like, and especially with women, like we're told we're too much or we're extra or we're bougie. And like some of those things are very light and playful. But I've found over the past few months, every time I've heard that, it has kind of really been a ping in my heart. And I just, was going to see when the guidance popped in and why it was coming in for me in that way. And it just came in so clearly that we really do have permission to be ultra and what that means for us in our lives. And when we're talking about magnetism and living unapologetically and healing all of our people pleasing and our codependency, there really needs to be a space for that. But even more so, there needs to be a space and a container where you can share like how powerful you are. And no one's going to doubt it. No one's going to make you prove it. And that's why it's so funny that all this happened so quickly, because I literally just recorded an episode about not having to prove yourself. And I know a lot of you here are very powerful healers and you're very powerful leaders and educators in your community. And we really need to kind of have that space. And I'm so grateful and honored that I get to hold this new container, this new space. And every time you click to listen to Being Ultra, it's just a reminder and invitation that you can be ultra, right? Like you can just be your fullest expression and know that you are safely held and loved for it. And, while I can't control who listens to the podcast and who's on my YouTube, I do have control over, who I follow on social media, who is on my email list. And I'm really doing everything I can to clean up this energy so that it's so beyond sacred, because we have a lot of work to do and we have a lot of people to help and serve. And, it kind of makes me feel weird when people are like, we have a responsibility to da 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 da. And it's like, the only responsibility we have is to be our authentic selves, because when we are our authentic selves and we're vibrating at a higher frequency, which is love and truth and authenticity, we actually counteract so many more people than we can even imagine. And you can actually look at the scale of David Hawkins, because I'm sure a lot of you listening are already at the frequency where you're counteracting about 100,000 people who are in a lower frequency. And the higher you raise your frequency and are honored, seen, and celebrated for that, and it's just by being here with me, I'm celebrating you and seeing you and honoring you. You don't have to do anything. You just have to show up and press play. You have the availability from proven science that you can counteract over 10 million people with your frequency rising. And so for me, this is a big aha, because if I'm just going to be super ultra and not be scared of my power and to let people know that this is available, like I have these offerings for a reason, and you can say no if you want to. And so when people are like, we have a responsibility to blah, 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 I say, no, we have a responsibility to just be ourselves. That's our biggest responsibility, because if I've learned anything from the thousands of people that I have met, the thousands of people I've worked with, and the multiple people I meet every just single day in daily life, and especially in networking events, there's a lot of people who are not ready for this power. They're not ready to turn that dial all the way up on their dream life. And that's totally okay. That's totally that's their right. That's their divine right. They have free will. But this space is for the people who are like, I'm ready to be ultra. I'm ready to speak my truth. I'm ready to share my ideas and thoughts and ask questions with people who are going to see me. And so I am in the process of opening up a community space, which is a pretty amazing idea and thing that's happening, because I really didn't think I was going to do groups. And a lot of it was just my own drama and trauma with not feeling seen and not feeling heard. And kind of just when you're at a certain point in your leadership journey, that's what we're talking about today. It's not about being a leader who goes ahead and everybody follows you. That's not what a leader is. A leader is walking with you, teaching you, training you so that you can go off whenever you want and make your own group. And so I am very excited that we're going to have a safe place to land live in a sacred container where everyone is vetted by me. So as of right now, it's going to be a very, very small group because I don't want to be ultra by myself. And I know a lot of you here are amazing and so deeply gifted. And I'm one of the few people that you feel like you can tell the things that you're experiencing on a daily basis. And because you know that I'm going to not just believe you, but I'm just going to celebrate you. And, you know, when you're an amazing animal communicator, like I'm going to send you referrals. And this is what this whole New Earth business is about. And especially with New Earth healthcare, because I do, you know, because of my background and the spaces that I just am intuitively led, this New Earth healthcare is definitely something that we share as a mission together in this community. And so I kind of wanted to back up a little bit and talk a little bit more about the brain science of magnetic leadership, because it's extremely important. And, you know, I've worked at quote unquote world-class brain health organizations, and the leadership was not, as we would say, Fallon Jordan stamp of approval. And so I wanted to share it here, especially under this beautiful new sacred umbrella that we have, to really help you understand that and just make sure, like, if you haven't ever downloaded my 10 ways to boost brain function, it's a PDF that I designed for you to like have on your phone at all times, and like just having resources with some of the science behind it so that you can share it with other people. So I will put the link below so that you can download that. Because I mean, sometimes it's as simple as someone supplementing iron and their whole life changes. Sometimes it's supplementing vitamin D, their whole life changes. Sometimes it's supplementing saffron and someone's life completely changes. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about the brain science of magnetic leadership. And so I can't help but when I think about the brain, like I think of my own brain, like I see the brain activity and the actual brain scans that I've had. And that's kind of how I see everybody. Like, obviously I ask for permission to like know what's going on in their brain, but that's just how I see things and think of things, which is a gift, right? It's one of my gifts. So one of the things that people don't realize is that with leadership, you are signing up to be in charge in some type of way, a way shower, if you will. You know, maybe you're a manager, maybe you are a C-suite executive, and that comes with a lot of responsibility, and that can come with a lot of triggers. And so if you haven't healed your past trauma, and we're talking about trauma, I'm talking about physical trauma, like concussions, anything where your head, which is so beautiful and soft and floating in water, was violently brought frontwards and backwards or side to side multiple times. That's physical brain trauma that is changing your brain chemistry and your ability to handle stress, focus, be motivated, follow flow, be creative, be persistent, you know, and efficient. And so that's one piece. And then, of course, we have the emotional trauma piece when we're talking about triggers that are a natural part of the leadership process. And my goal one of my many, many goals is always to make sure that you feel equipped when you are getting triggered by something. And it could be as simple as just remembering to breathe. And it's so funny because like, I'm shopping for my new yoga home and it's like, why do you do yoga? And it's like, I literally need to be somewhere for an hour a few times a week where someone just reminds me to breathe. Like it's as simple as that. But it's okay for me to understand that like that simple need is extremely important for me because even just in yoga, like there's still this like having to perform, having to push part of me and my ego that literally just my brain goes into like overdrive, my amygdala turns on, my prefrontal cortex shuts down. And that's when I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to remember to breathe. So that's why these skills are so important. So just to name off of a few of my absolute favorites. So, definitely energy work, obviously. It's like my bread and butter. But, EFT tapping, the brains technique that Whitney Nattiello has. I mean, she's been on my podcast multiple times talking about it. Havening is something that I'm really passionate about as well. And so there's a lot of these little tools that we can do and not have to look, like I love Brad Yates because he's excited for us to be in a world where everyone's tapping all the time. But some of the energy tips and tricks that I like to share with people are just simple things you can do and people don't even notice. For example, like you're in a meeting, you're doing a performance review for an employee, and you can tell that they're getting very upset and like taking things personally because you haven't done your job by making every employee you hire sign saying that they will abide by the 4 agreements of Don Miguel Ruiz, which I personally think is necessary if you're going to have staff that is a part of your brand and attached to your name. So if you're in that circumstance, you can literally just take your hand and then you're just imagining that you're lifting something very gentle, and that will help your energy come up and when you're speaking, and then when the other person is speaking and very upset saying things that are difficult, you can actually press down with your hand. It's going to bring the energy of that person down so that it's not affecting you as much. So it's like one of my favorite tricks. But there's a lot of different things out there that you can do. And I definitely want to talk about that more and kind of create a space for you guys to have that always available. So stay tuned. But when you have the physical trauma to your brain and you have the emotional trauma to your brain and you're trying to deal with stress and triggers, and especially if you're a woman and it's the week before you're going to have your menstruation, your brain is just like not at its best, right? Like your focus and your energy and your motivation is naturally low. And so also when we're talking about brain science in magnetic leadership, as a leader, you are only doing your due diligence if you have the right employees in the right position. Human design is the best way, the most efficient way to make sure that that's happening. And then you get to help support them with these tools of, what can I do when I'm having a difficult conversation with someone? And what if it is the week before my menstruation? Is there a way that I can make sure that I am scheduling things that I know are going to be difficult, like performance reviews, sales meetings, things like that? Like as a woman, like you're much more likely to get a positive result if you start having those things that are naturally occurring during the week of your ovulation. So again, women are 4 different women throughout the month because their brain is completely changing based on what's happening with their hormones. And it is linked to the moon, you guys. So if you don't have periods, you're on birth control, you went through menopause, you've had a hysterectomy, your body still has a natural cycle and your brain is still naturally changing 4 different times throughout the month. So it's extremely important for you to pay attention, listen to your intuition, and just start noting, like, on these weeks, I definitely notice myself having more creative ideas. On these weeks, I notice myself having more creative ideas. And then I have total energy and motivation to start implementing them, versus the times where you're like, you know what, like magic wand, like if I could just like relax for like 1 or 2 days and just like, watch something cute and funny, spend time outside, spend time cuddling with my animals, like taking a bath, like doing those self-care things, especially the week that you're menstruating, you're going to see how your whole life changes. And it's just incredible when we look at the female brain versus the male brain. And because being magnetic as a woman is very different than being magnetic as a man for some of the reasons I've just shared, which is women are evolving and changing throughout the month. And men are typically the same person every single day. They're on a 24-hour cycle. They're not on a monthly cycle. And so it is wonderful when we have male leaders who are in the right role. We have had them sign the 4 agreements. We have looked at their human design, like they have just straight up leadership abilities. This is where we can teach them as women, like some of these other fun tools that they might not know exist, like energy healing, EFT tapping, the brains technique, havening. And so it's really this co-creative process that we need to be talking more about with men and women and the differences that we have in our actual brain function. And so one of the things that's important is to know more about your brain. So naturally, how well is your prefrontal cortex functioning? How well can you focus, stay motivated, stay organized, and not procrastinate? Do you have what we call an overactive basal ganglia? It's 2 parts in your brain that I think of as kind of sisters, and they're your anxiety centers. And one of them is kind of the outward anxiety, where someone with that tells someone they have anxiety and they're like, well, yeah, duh, like I knew that, versus the other side, which I feel like is a lot more in this community, is that that like lower anxiety that people might not notice because it's all in your mind, of your people pleasing, your wanting to avoid conflict without it seeming like super obvious. You are wanting to be a high performer. A lot of people with this part of their brain overactive have a lot of ADHD symptoms, which is why it's so important to know what's actually going on in your brain. And there's so many beautiful supplements and things like that that can help support that area of the brain, which are in the 10 ways to boost brain function PDF, which you can download below. And then for people who have an overactive limbic system, this is what we consider the mood and the memory center. People that have an overactive limbic system, this is where they might have had depression or grief. This is a part of the brain that needs extra love and attention the week before menstruation for women, and then also the week of menstruation. And saffron is one of my favorite supplements for supporting this area. And then if you have, what we'd consider more clinical depression, there's a supplement called SAMe that I really like. And it's SAM, capital SAM, and then lowercase e. It's really, really amazing. And so those are things that, again, like you're supporting your brain so that you can actually show up the way that you want to as a leader. Because if you are, if you have some of this stuff going on in your brain and you're constantly on edge, I mean, your brain literally won't work, right? Like when your emotional and anxiety centers are overactive, your prefrontal cortex shuts down and then you can't get anything done. And it sucks. And that's why I'm sharing all these tools and resources with you guys. And then one more thing before we start to close with the physical trauma. So typically when someone has physical trauma from concussions, some type of other brain injury, whiplash, things like that, and even having heavy antibiotics prescribed to you as a child, it looks like brain damage, just like a concussion. It's just it's not as localized as a typical concussion, especially if there's blunt force trauma. But your temporal lobes, so the parts of your brain behind your ears, these are where the football players get really, really messed up. I mean, you have to take supplements and do hyperbaric oxygen therapy to get those parts working again. There's no magic medication. There's no magic therapy. I do love, having that high energy frequency music playing. That definitely is helpful. I'm slowly coming out of my phase because I'm really into Neville Goddard right now, but I was listening to a lot of Mozart to support my temporal lobes, and it was amazing. But my favorite things are supplements, phosphatidylserine being the number one, and then hyperbaric oxygen therapy being a huge one as well. So I'm going to put some resources about that below for you as well. So as you can see there, and again, like once you get the freebie, like you'll have a general brain diagram that kind of explains things that so that you can kind of follow along. I'm sure if you're here, you're like me and like you love tactile learning, like having pictures and diagrams and things like that. So, but really just the invitation is really starting to think about your brain as the organ of success. So you lead with your heart. Your heart is where your magic is, but your brain is what helps bring it into the 3D. And that is what I'm here to support you with, because whether your job title says you're a leader or not, like you are a leader if you're here. And especially if you're a woman, like I can't tell you how many people I meet and, they want to hire me to work with their family, but they're like, my son's not on board, my husband's not on board, whatever. They don't need to be. If you're the female lead in your family and you do the things that I recommend you do, and a lot of that is just receiving, right? Just receiving high energy frequency, they're naturally going to shift and change, because a woman is literally I say like the woman's health, the mom's health, the wife's health dictates the rest of the family's health. And it's one of the most amazing things, especially for some of you who have done a lot of work with, not trying to rescue people, not trying to fix people, etc. This is such a beautiful thing to really realize. And that by taking care of yourself and prioritizing yourself, like literally the people around you have no chance but not to have improvements, right? Like what we call happy side effects. So definitely just be mindful of that. So I'll put those resources below, and then there's still some time left on my Black Friday sale, which I do highly recommend if you haven't taken my Healing ADHD and Dementia Prevention program. It is absolute gold and really limitless potential for all the different ways that it can help you. I've had people that took the course when it first came out, and I'll hear from them months later and they're like, I just kind of decided that I want to be an ADHD coach, or I just kind of decided that I want to be a dyslexia coach. And I'm like, freaking awesome. And so again, that's where you're taking your power, right? You're being ultra, like you're doing the thing, you're letting people know the service is available to you. And then you trust through your own natural flow and energy that the people who are actually really ready to do this work with you are going to be so freaking excited to work with you that they're literally going to be like nonstop reaching out to you until they've paid you and you have scheduled our first session together. So that's really, to me, day one, new, fresh perspective, new, fresh name, identity. That's really what this new space is about being ultra. It's like everybody who is meant for you is just going to find you so much more quickly, because there aren't a lot of spaces like this where the person leading isn't a like multimillionaire. Like I'm not a multimillionaire yet. I know that it's going to happen. It could happen today, tomorrow, 5 years from now. But like my job is to do what is closest to my heart and going to make the biggest impact. And right now it's inviting you to join me by being ultra and just like being totally unapologetically yourself, for liking the things that you like, not liking the things that you don't like, and really just like being proud to be fucking awake, right? Like I love Tracy L. Clark so much. And I love that I've been following her for years, and every single video and any sort of platform that she works with, she starts every conversation by saying, like, as someone who's been awake for 25 years doing this work, da 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 da. And it's like, that's something to celebrate, right? And talk about being bold and being ultra. Like Tracy L. Clark is. I mean, she's energy healer of the decade. Like, they don't just hand out those awards to anybody, guys. There's a reason why she's been my mentor for so long. So that's what's possible for you. Like, that's what's possible for us. And I'm so excited to get the community off the ground. So stay tuned. Definitely, check out the Black Friday sale. And then I will also, again, put the links to make sure that you have the 10 ways to boost brain function so that you have those tools always available to you so you can share them with people who are actually awake and ready to heal and get out of the crazy matrix healthcare system, which is a bunch of psychopaths that enjoy hurting and killing other people very slowly. So I love you, and I'm so grateful that you are here, and I will talk to you all soon.